There exist certain corners of our planet where the ordinary laws of physics, time, and sanity appear to bend, fracture, and sometimes shatter entirely. These are locations where the sky can suddenly split open to reveal impossible lights that dance in defiance of gravity and aerodynamics, where shadows detach from their sources and move with deliberate, predatory intelligence, where time betrays the human mind. Minutes stretch into forgotten eternities, or hours vanish in the blink of an eye, leaving only disorientation and dread. Where the very membrane separating our familiar reality from whatever incomprehensible realm lies beyond grows so perilously thin that you can almost feel its fragile surface brush against your skin, cold and alive. One of the most notorious, most active, and now most rapidly expanding of these places lies in southeastern Massachusetts, a sprawling zone of approximately 200 square miles, roughly the size of the city of Chicago, that has haunted, terrified, and fascinated generations of residents, researchers, and visitors alike. Silent UFOs that hover for minutes before accelerating away at velocities no known human craft could achieve. Towering, muscular, hairy humanoid figures with eyes that burn red or yellow in the darkness, watching silently from the edges of impenetrable swamps. Poltergeists that do not merely rattle chains, but violently hurl heavy furniture, shatter reinforced glass, and whisper the names of sleeping children in empty rooms. Hikers and campers who step off marked trails for mere moments and are swallowed by the landscape, never to be found. Abandoned clearings that serve as ritual sites where the earth itself seems permanently stained with the residue of old blood and darker ceremonies. And now, in the years 2024 and especially 2025, a chilling new development. The boundaries that once contained this strangeness are dissolving. The phenomena are no longer politely confined. They are spreading outward, hungry, inexorable. For nearly half a century, this region has borne the name the Bridgewater Triangle, America's own inland, landlocked counterpart to the infamous Bermuda Triangle of the Atlantic. The term was first coined in the 1970s by renowned cryptozoologist Loren Coleman, who connected 3 points on the map: Abington in the north, Rehoboth in the southwest, and Freetown in the southeast. Within this geometric shape lie the towns and cities of Taunton, Raynham, Bridgewater, Brockton, Norton, Mansfield, and at its dark, pulsating core, the enormous, mist-shrouded, nearly impenetrable Hockomock Swamp, a place the indigenous Wampanoag people long ago named the dwelling place of spirits. But the Bridgewater Triangle we once knew is undergoing a profound, unsettling transformation. Fresh reports, photographic evidence, video captures, and eyewitness testimonies from 2023 onward demonstrate that the high strangeness phenomena are no longer contained within those original lines. The activity is pushing aggressively outward, creeping into Seekonk, Mansfield, Attleboro, North Attleboro, and further still. New anomalous hotspots have emerged in Rhode Island border towns, along the winding course of the Blackstone River, in parts of Providence County, and even sporadically as far north as southern Vermont. Clusters of unexplained disappearances now follow patterns eerily reminiscent of David Paulides' missing 411 investigations, but in ever-widening concentric rings. UFO sightings, after years of relative dormancy in the 2010s, have tripled in frequency and intensity. Poltergeist infestations have begun striking ordinary suburban homes and apartment complexes located miles beyond the classic triangle perimeter. Time slip experiences, those disorienting moments when reality seems to stutter or skip, are multiplying on hiking trails, back roads, and even in residential neighborhoods. Fresh ritual sites, charred ceremonial circles, meticulously arranged animal bones, deeply carved ancient symbols that still weep sap, are being discovered in forests and woodlands that were previously considered normal or safe. This is no longer merely the Bridgewater Triangle. This is Bridgewater Triangle 2.0, an actively expanding vortex of the unexplained, a spreading laceration in the fabric of consensus reality, a clear signal that the thin places, those rare locations where the boundary between our world and something vastly older, stranger, and hungrier are not only present, but growing, tearing wider, and pulling ever more of the surrounding Northeast into their ancient, insatiable grasp. Tonight, we descend deeper into this mystery than any previous exploration has dared. We trace the phenomenon's ancient roots, from pre-colonial Wampanoag warnings and taboos through centuries of colonial bloodshed, betrayal, and desecration. We revisit in exhaustive detail the classic, foundational cases that first made the Bridgewater Triangle infamous worldwide. We dissect the dramatic surge of fresh evidence, eyewitness accounts, and documented incidents from 2024 and 2025 that irrefutably demonstrate the boundaries are failing catastrophically. We listen carefully to the most recent survivor testimonies, the findings of contemporary investigators, and the harrowing stories of those who narrowly escaped time displacements, vanishings, or worse. And we carefully weigh, without flinching, every major explanatory framework: geophysical and electromagnetic anomalies, long-dormant Native American curses now reawakening, networks of stable dimensional portals, the dangerous amplification of collective human consciousness through modern media, the lingering psychic residue of centuries of accumulated trauma, or something far older, far more incomprehensible that has slumbered here for millennia, patiently waiting for humanity to grow loud enough, curious enough, invasive enough to finally stir it awake. We must begin at the absolute center, the beating, malevolent heart of it all: Hockomock Swamp. The indigenous Wampanoag, who inhabited this land for thousands of years before European contact, held this vast, treacherous wetland in profound reverence and equally profound terror. They referred to it explicitly as the place where spirits dwell, a designation that carried both spiritual weight and practical warning. They treated the swamp with ceremonial respect, but they steadfastly avoided deep incursions, particularly after sunset. Oral traditions spoke at length of the Pukwudgies, small, malevolent humanoid trickster beings covered in gray fur or porcupine quills, capable of mimicry, shape-shifting, and luring the unwary to watery graves. They described certain areas within the swamp as doorways, thin spots in reality where the ancestors walked freely, where the dead could reach through, and where the living crossed at their extreme peril. When the first wave of European settlers arrived in the early to mid-16th century, they dismissed every indigenous caution as mere superstition. This arrogance would prove catastrophically costly. The King Philip's War, 1675 to 1676, often described by historians as the bloodiest conflict per capita in all of American history, turned this entire region into a killing ground. Metacomet, known to the English as King Philip, led a coalition of native tribes in a desperate, ultimately doomed struggle against relentless colonial expansion. Massacres, betrayals, scorched earth campaigns, and atrocities on all sides left the soil saturated with blood. Sacred Wampanoag burial grounds were deliberately plowed under, looted, or built over. One of the most enduring legends concerns a sacred wampum belt, an object believed to hold immense spiritual and binding power, which was stolen from Profile Rock, a massive granite outcrop in Freetown that naturally resembles the profile of a Native American chief gazing eternally over the forest. That theft, many believe, broke something fundamental in the land's spiritual equilibrium. From that violent chapter onward, the anomalous activity in the region began to escalate in both frequency and intensity. The very first documented UFO sighting in North America took place right here, May 10, 1760. Multiple credible witnesses in Bridgewater and Roxbury described a great ball of fire, brighter than the noonday sun, moving with impossible angular changes of direction across the sky before vanishing abruptly. The 19th century and early 20th century produced scattered but persistent reports, strange floating lights over the swamp at night, shadowy humanoid figures observed at the periphery of vision, unexplained livestock mutilations with surgical precision. But the modern explosive phase of the phenomenon truly ignited in the 1970s. In 1978, Boston radio journalists Jack Alexander and Steve Gallant encountered one of the most dramatic sightings on record, a massive, silent, home plate-shaped UFO equipped with pulsating red lights and a powerful forward headlight. The craft hovered motionless over West Bridgewater for several minutes, defying all conventional aerodynamics before accelerating away at a velocity that left the witnesses speechless. Throughout the late 1970s and early 1980s, Norton Police Sergeant Thomas Downey filed repeated official police reports after personally observing a thunderbird, a gigantic pterodactyl-like flying creature with an estimated 12-foot wingspan, gliding silently above the waters and treetops of Hockomock Swamp. Bigfoot or Sasquatch sightings increased dramatically during this period. Eyewitnesses consistently described enormous, muscular, 7 to 10-foot tall, hairy bipedal figures with eyes that glowed bright red or yellow in low light. Some reports noted the creatures moving on all fours with surprising agility. Others emphasized their unnerving habit of standing perfectly motionless at the forest edge, simply watching. Physical evidence included massive footprints, often 16 to 18 inches long, displaying clear dermal ridge patterns and, in some cases, partial claw impressions in places where no known North American bear could possibly travel. Reports of giant snakes also emerged, creatures estimated at 20-plus feet in length and thicker than a grown man's thigh, slithering through dense underbrush far beyond the size range of any indigenous species, such as the black rat snake or timber rattlesnake. Poltergeist activity became a recurring nightmare for families and students, particularly in residences and dormitories near Bridgewater State University. Heavy furniture levitating and crashing violently across rooms, reinforced windows exploding inward without impact, disembodied voices calling out students' full names from empty hallways, full-bodied apparitions walking calmly through solid walls before vanishing. The Freetown Fall River State Forest, located in the southeastern corner, devolved into one of the most feared zones in the entire United States. Animal mutilations occurred with disturbing regularity. Cattle, deer, and other livestock discovered with surgically precise incisions, vital organs removed without a single drop of blood, and sometimes the remains arranged in deliberate geometric patterns. Local law enforcement and residents initially attributed these to rumored satanic cults operating in the woods. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, confessed Satanists Carl Drew and Robin Murphy were convicted in connection with a series of ritualistic murders. The bodies of young women were found mutilated and discarded in the forest. A disturbing cluster of suicides concentrated around Profile Rock, where legend insists the stolen wampum belt continues to exert a malevolent spiritual influence. The region appeared to feed on human suffering. The more violence, grief, and trauma it absorbed over the centuries, the more energetically the anomalous phenomena manifested. The release of the 2014 documentary film The Bridgewater Triangle, directed by Aaron Kadia and Shane Vieira, marked a pivotal turning point. The film presented compelling eyewitness interviews, archival footage, and on-location investigations that brought the phenomenon to a national and international audience for the first time. Following its release, the area experienced an influx of amateur and professional researchers. Paranormal investigator and wrestler Chris Jericho conducted an on-site exploration for his podcast in 2015. In 2025, the Discovery Channel series Expedition X
dispatched a full team to Hockomock Swamp, where they documented multiple simultaneous equipment malfunctions, fleeting shadow figures moving rapidly between trees, and persistent luminous orbs that appeared to react intelligently to directed laser pointers. Yet the most profound and alarming shift, the true beginning of Bridgewater Triangle 2.0, commenced quietly around 2022-2023 and then accelerated with shocking rapidity throughout 2024 and into late 2025. In early 2024, a solo hiker exploring trails in Seekonk, a town lying just beyond the original eastern boundary, managed to capture clear photographic evidence of a loose cluster of glowing, pulsating orbs that shadowed his movements for more than 2 miles along a deserted, overgrown path. The orbs maintained a constant distance, pulsing in a slow, rhythmic pattern before simultaneously winking out of existence. Subsequent analysis of his phone's metadata revealed a disturbing anomaly: 47 minutes of missing time for which he had absolutely no recollection. He remembered walking the trail, photographing the orbs, and then, abruptly, standing in the same spot nearly an hour later. A young family in Mansfield, whose backyard directly borders a series of wetlands that connect hydrologically to Hockomock Swamp, reported a rapid escalation of classic poltergeist phenomena. Heavy oak furniture sliding across hardwood floors with audible scraping, antique mirrors spontaneously developing deep spiderweb cracks, disembodied voices perfectly mimicking their children's cries for help from empty upstairs rooms, and cold spots that moved through the house like living entities.
UFO activity along the Rhode Island border underwent an unprecedented surge. Multiple independent witnesses observed silent, triangular craft displaying banks of steady amber lights hovering low over the Providence River and sections of the Blackstone Valley. Craft that matched the classic Bridgewater shape and behavior, but were sighted 10 to 15 miles outside the traditional triangle perimeter. In the woodlands of Attleboro, well beyond the swamp's influence, local residents discovered a series of massive, fresh, Bigfoot-like footprints after a heavy rain. 18-inch-long impressions exhibiting clear dermal ridge detail, partial claw marks on the leading edges, and stride lengths that suggested a creature of extraordinary height and power. Time slip incidents, those profoundly disorienting experiences where reality itself appears to stutter, skip, or loop, became disturbingly commonplace. One thoroughly documented case from spring 2025, a married couple driving along Route 44 near Seekonk suddenly experienced acute perceptual distortion. The road surface ahead blurred and rippled like heat haze over asphalt. Colors inverted briefly. When normal vision returned seconds later, the couple discovered their dashboard clock had advanced 2 hours and 12 minutes. They retained absolutely no memory of the intervening time. GPS tracking confirmed they had covered only 3.1 miles, a distance that should have required approximately 4 minutes of driving. Another deeply unsettling account from the same year, a solo camper in East Bridgewater carefully pitched his tent on a designated, well-marked trail clearing at 10:17 p.m. He fell asleep normally. Upon waking, he found his entire tent, stakes pulled, gear undisturbed, inexplicably relocated 200 yards deeper into the dense forest. No drag marks scarred the ground. No footprints led to or from the new location. Both his wristwatch and smartphone displayed 1:42 a.m. More than 3 hours of completely unaccounted-for time had elapsed. Cases of missing persons within the expanding zone increasingly mirror the disturbing patterns cataloged by investigator David Polietis in his Missing 411 series. Experienced, well-equipped hikers vanishing within literal sight of established trails. Professional search and rescue dogs losing scent abruptly and inexplicably at granite boulder fields, berry patches, or swamp edges. Recovered bodies discovered in locations that had already been thoroughly grid-searched multiple times,
sometimes with clothing removed in sub-freezing temperatures without signs of hypothermia. Certain victims exhibited paradoxical injuries, shattered bones with no corresponding external trauma, as if dropped from great heights while remaining near the point of disappearance. Meanwhile, evidence of new and active ritual sites proliferated throughout the outer forests and woodlands. Isolated clearings previously untouched revealed signs of very recent ceremonial activity. Perfectly circular patches of charred earth measuring 12 to 15 feet in diameter, animal bones, often deer or coyote, arranged in precise geometric or symbolic patterns, deeply incised ancient sigils and runes carved into mature tree trunks, some carvings still weeping fresh sap, suggesting they had been made within hours or days of discovery. Why is the Bridgewater Triangle expanding so aggressively at this particular moment? Contemporary researchers, experiencers, and fringe theorists propose several interlocking explanatory frameworks, none of which are mutually exclusive. Theory 1. Geophysical and electromagnetic amplification. The region is situated atop a complex intersection of ley lines, theorized energetic alignments connecting sacred and anomalous sites across the globe. Subterranean quartz veins and significant magnetic anomalies create natural pockets of electromagnetic disturbance known as thin places. With the solar cycle reaching its peak intensity during the 2024-2025 solar maximum, these naturally occurring fields are being dramatically amplified, causing the weak spots in reality to widen and multiply. Theory 2. The reawakening of an ancient native curse. The Wampanoag people suffered near genocidal devastation in this region. King Philip's War resulted in the death of thousands, the destruction of villages, and the deliberate desecration of sacred burial grounds and ceremonial sites. The legendary stolen wampum belt, an object believed to bind and balance spiritual forces, was never returned. As modern development accelerates, new housing subdivisions, expanded highways, potential fracking exploration, the land's accumulated spiritual anger is reawakening, and the curse is spreading outward in widening ripples, like ink diffusing through water. Theory 3. An active, expanding portal vortex network. Parallels to other well-documented anomalous zones, such as Skinwalker Ranch in Utah or the Nevada Triangle, suggest that the Bridgewater area may contain one or more stable dimensional gateways. High strangeness phenomena, UFOs, cryptids, poltergeists, time slips, represent bleed-through from adjacent realities. The dramatic surge throughout 2024-2025 indicates that these portals are not only active, but actively multiplying, synchronizing, or growing, forming a larger interconnected web of thin places that threatens to encompass a much broader region of the Northeast.
Theory 4. Amplification through collective human consciousness. For decades, focused belief, storytelling, media coverage, documentaries, podcasts, social media discussions, and widespread fear have poured psychic energy directly into the triangle. The more individuals think about, talk about, investigate, and emotionally react to the phenomenon, the more raw energy is available for manifestation. This creates a powerful feedback loop. Greater attention produces stronger events, which in turn attract even greater attention, pushing the boundaries outward in an accelerating cycle of amplification. Theory 5. The lingering psychic residue of centuries of accumulated trauma. The land has absorbed wave after wave of profound human suffering, colonial-era massacres, King Philip's War atrocities, 20th century cult murders, ritual suicides, personal tragedies, and now modern disappearances. This accumulated psychic residue functions as a powerful magnet for darker, opportunistic forces. As each new layer of trauma is added, through contemporary vanishings, escalating ritual activity, and collective fear, it draws increasingly intense phenomena, creating a self-perpetuating, self-expanding cycle. As of December 2025, the expansion shows no sign of slowing. The Expedition X Team's 2025 investigation into Hockomock Swamp documented activity on an unprecedented scale. Multiple simultaneous equipment failures across different brands and technologies, fleeting shadow figures moving rapidly between trees in broad daylight, persistent luminous orbs that not only appeared but reacted intelligently to directed laser pointers and voice commands. Local residents in Rainham have reported a marked increase in Pukwudgie sightings, the small malevolent trickster beings from Algonquian oral tradition, emerging near forest edges, mimicking human voices to lure hikers off marked trails, and in some cases, physically pushing people toward swampy areas. In late 2025, a hiker in Norton managed to capture shaky but compelling cell phone footage of a tall, translucent, shimmering humanoid figure, potentially a so-called glimmer man, moving at unnatural, almost stop-motion speed through dense undergrowth, appearing and disappearing like a severe visual glitch in reality. A family in Rainham endured repeated 3 a.m. knocking episodes at their front door over several weeks. Ring camera footage showed empty porches each time. During each event, every electronic device in the home experienced wild glitches, phones rebooting spontaneously, televisions switching channels, lights flickering in Morse-like patterns. The family's normally fearless German Shepherd refused to enter the backyard for nearly a month following the final incident. The Bridgewater Triangle is no longer a fixed, static anomaly. It is alive. It is growing. It is bleeding outward into the surrounding world at an accelerating rate. If thin places, those rare and fragile locations where the boundary between our reality and other realms becomes perilously permeable, truly exist, then southeastern Massachusetts may represent one of the largest, most powerful, most historically traumatized, and now most rapidly expanding such zones on the North American continent. As humanity continues to encroach, constructing new subdivisions, carving wider trails, directing ever-increasing attention, and disturbing the land with increasing frequency, we may not merely be observing the phenomenon, we may be nourishing it, feeding it, fueling its expansion. Next time you find yourself driving through southeastern Massachusetts, past the brooding, mist-shrouded expanse of Hockomock Swamp, beneath the eternal stony gaze of Profile Rock, or near the quiet, unassuming menace of Solitude Stone, remain vigilant. When the birds abruptly fall silent in the middle of their song, when the air grows unnaturally thick, heavy, and charged, when your phone suddenly loses all signal, your watch begins to glitch, and the flow of time itself starts to feel subtly, dangerously wrong, you may have already crossed the invisible receding boundary into Bridgewater Triangle 2.0. America's new, relentlessly expanding Bermuda Triangle. And it is awake. It is hungry. Very long, immersive closing sequence. Wind rising steadily to a full, mournful howl over 60 seconds. Thunder rolling in ever closer waves that seem to circle and envelop the listener. Faint overlapping layers of ancient native chants blending with distorted modern whispers and static into a single deeply unsettling polyphonic chorus. Finally, dropping into absolute oppressive silence that lingers for several seconds. The land remembers everything. The spirits have never truly left. The thin places are tearing wider with every passing day. Stay out of the swamp after dusk, lock your doors at night, and if you ever feel that unmistakable sensation of being watched, if the hairs on the back of your neck rise without reason, if the world around you feels just slightly off, you run. Do not look back,
because something ancient and patient in the Bridgewater Triangle has awakened fully, and it is coming for more.